How are you? You're watching the Hidden Meanings program from the Christian Village Church in Forked River. You know what I wanted to do today? Something a little bit different. So many people are fearful of Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I thought you might just get a kick out of sharing some of his teachings from a magnificent document that's called Bhagavad Gita. B-H-A-G-A-V-A-D. Gita, G-I-T-A. All right? Bhagavad Gita of Krishna. And what that document is, it's a very interesting drama that takes place actually in the human mind. And it sets up two warring armies about to do battle. The armies of Arjuna, the sons of Padu, which is on the right side. That's the right hemisphere. And the other sons of the blind king on the left side. The sons of the blind king mean the blindness of the carnal mind. That's what it's about. It's good for you to study Krishna, as it's good to study Buddha, as you study along with Jesus Christ, so that you get away from all of the fears and the bondages that you get into through religion. And in this way, you're able to open yourself up to understand, if nothing else, to understand where other people are coming from. Let's read something from the Bhagavad Gita of Krishna. It says, in the light of this wisdom. Now, what he's talking about when he says wisdom, he's talking about consciousness, the human mind, consciousness, the human mind, okay? He says, our ancestors who sought deliverance, notice that word, performed their acts in the light of the wisdom of the renewed mind, consciousness. And he's saying, you should act as our fathers did. What is so fascinating about that is that this document was written approximately 7,000 years ago, and he's talking about their forefathers, the people of the ancient times. Can you imagine such a thing? I mean, this is about 5,000 years before Jesus was born. But what does he say? He says, talking about the ancestors back 7,000 years ago who sought deliverance. That's the word we want to home in on, okay? And I know many of you are seeking the same thing, deliverance. What's deliverance mean? The word deliverance means to be set free. And that's if you look in Webster's dictionary. But in this light of the new birth, being reborn, born anew, born again, it also means to assist in birth. We say a person delivered a baby, or they call the room where the hospital is, in the hospital where the baby is born, they call it the delivery room. To give birth in spirituality is the virgin conception of Christ. That's what we understand it as. But when you study Krishna, okay, you have to look at something that's quite surprising to you, but nonetheless, it's true. Here you have Christ, we know it, and here you have Krishna. All right? Now, of course, we'll put here Jesus. Jesus' mother was Mary, and Krishna's mother was Devaki. Now, Krishna was born 5,000 years before Jesus was born. But the interesting point is that Mary sat in her room, and the angel came and said, fear not, Mary, for you are made with child of the Holy Ghost, and you will give birth, and his name shall be Emmanuel, and so forth. 5,000 years before that, Devaki was sitting in her room, pondering the same thing. How could this be? Because she hasn't known a man. And an angel came and said, fear not, Devaki, for that child within you is the personality of God. You will give birth to Krishna. Now, as you know, when Mary gave birth to Jesus, there was what we call the Bethlehem star. The star. When Devaki gave birth to Krishna, it says the stars were auspicious. In other words, there was a special movement of the stars. Now, in the Jesus story, There was the wicked King Herod, who set out to kill the children 2 years and younger. In the Krishna story, there was the wicked King Kansa, who set out to kill the children 2 years and younger. Both Herod and Kansa heard that Jesus or Krishna was going to rise up and overthrow their kingdom, and so that was the story there. And in the Jesus story, the shepherds came. In the Krishna story, the cowherd girls came. The shepherds symbolize that which is the sheep, and in Christian mysticism, that's spirit. The cowherd girls are spirit, and the cow, they take care of the cows, which are holy, because the cow takes into itself that which is of the earth, grass, if you would, and gives back that which is milk. That's why the cow is sacred, because there's that metamorphosis, that transformation from the lower to the higher that goes through a cow. But you know, that was very interesting when I read in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna was talking about ancestors, and this is 7,000 years ago. But in John 12:12, there's an interesting statement. It says, with the ancient is wisdom. And we're talking of the ancients who taught the mystical secrets, and it's the mystical secrets that religion fears. And these are the secrets that Jesus taught. When Jesus was teaching about practicing the single eye and entering within yourself, he was teaching that ancient mysticism. And so Krishna is instructing us to follow the ancients. But you know what's amazing? So does the Bible. Isaiah 9:15 says, the ancient and honorable, he is the head. That means directing you to the realms of higher consciousness. The prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. I read then from Isaiah 9:15. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, the renewed consciousness. The prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail, it says in the Bible. And so, again, the Bible is referring you back to the times of Krishna, talking of the renewed conscious, the ancient and honorable, and steering you away from the prophets of gloom and doom. Now, when you define wisdom, let's say here, if we're talking about the Bhagavad Gita written 7,000 years ago, 5,000 years before Jesus was born, that, of course, is filled with what they call dark sayings. Now, the name of this program is Hidden Meanings, okay? And hidden meanings would be appropriately called in the Bible dark sayings, all right? Or hidden meanings. Now, let's take a look at something with me. Proverbs 1:6 defines wisdom. It says, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. Dark sayings. Those things that are hidden. That's why it is absolute insanity to read the Bible literally. The Apostle Paul said, be not a minister of the letter. Don't take this literally. The Apostle Paul said the Old Testament is allegorical. Galatians 4:24. That means it's symbolic. Parables. Dark sayings. Okay? Now these words are called dark sayings. And what I wanted to show you is something that I know you've never seen before. Because when you think of God or you think of Jesus, you think of coming into the light, okay? But unfortunately, as we go into the light of religion, we are going into the darkness. When you go into the darkness of meditation, I want to show you a scripture. You might want to write this one down so you can look it up later. Amos 5:18, the book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 18. It says, the day, and that means understanding, enlightenment of the Lord is darkness. Okay? Amos 5:18, the day of the Lord is darkness. In other words, you will find light or understanding of God when you enter into the darkness, which is meditation. But as long as you keep looking into what you think is the light outside in religion, you're never going to find it. So if we follow the ancient directives then of Krishna, of Buddha, and of Jesus, we'll be delivered. See? Now, interesting, we get into a concept of what is action and what is inaction. In other words, you take action, you know what that is, right? Or inaction. Obviously, you know what that is. Either you're doing something or you're doing nothing. So before we move on, I wanted to show you something, though, about the things that you try to understand from the intellect, being wise. In 1 Corinthians 1:19, and a lot of you go to Bible studies and you got Bible teachers and so forth and so on. 1 Corinthians 1:19, it says, "It is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise and bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent." So we see why today so many of, quote unquote, the wise are bewildered, and so many of the people you see teaching on television have no idea of what we're talking about. See? And 1 Corinthians 1:20, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of the world? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? So then you've got to find a wisdom that is contained within the dark saying. Krishna says, I will declare unto you the philosophy of action. See it here? Action. That means doing things. And knowing it, he says, you will be set free from evil. Now, you remember last week we went through there is no devil stuff and how to be freed from evil. When you understand the mystical direction, you become free. That's what Jesus Christ said. Jesus Christ taught mysticism. Jesus Christ taught that you must enter within yourself and practice the single eye. And he said, if you do that, you'll understand truth, and the truth will set you free. Folks, you cannot understand truth by going to church. You cannot understand truth by reading a Bible, because the Bibles are all different, and the churches are all different, and everybody's saying something different. And no matter what, if you don't believe it, it's not truth. You'll never know truth until you know it from within yourself, and then you'll know truth. Exactly from within yourself will come that movement which we call Christ consciousness, and you'll know without a shadow of a doubt. And everybody outside will say you're a nut, you're a cult, but you'll know without any doubt whatsoever that it's true. And that's what Jesus was saying. If you do what he says, you'll know the truth. Now, it's necessary to consider, as Krishna says, what is right action, what is wrong action, but we got this other thing over here too. What is inaction? What is doing something? What is doing nothing? Now, according to Krishna, if you come to an understanding of this, you reach sainthood. Now, why? Watch this. He who can see inaction in action, and action and inaction, is the wisest among men. Okay? Now, what is he saying? If you can see inaction in action, and action in inaction, you become wise. How is this possible? Think about that. Let's just think. Can you see inaction in action? Can you see, for instance, the result of your meditations? Can you see that your actions which come from meditation are not for your good, they're for the common good? In other words, as you begin to act, you begin to do things that are no longer based on what's good or necessary for you, but you are directed what is good and necessary for nature, what is good and necessary for others, what is good and necessary for life, see? So you see then, okay, you see inaction in action. And this is what it means. You go into meditation. That's inaction. When you meditate, you are doing nothing. Okay? But then when you start doing things, you come up with new ideas, because the action that you take is a result of the inaction. So you are seeing the results of meditation in the things that start to happen with your life. That's seeing inaction in action. You don't think your way out of something. You meditate and then allow nature, the renewed mind, the Christ within you to take its course, and you then see the reason that this is coming out right is because I was in meditation. The reason that I now know what to do when before I didn't know what to do is because I'm in meditation. So you're seeing inaction in action. Okay? All right. Now what about saying action in inaction? Meditation is action. That's the important thing, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Jesus Christ says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. If your eye be single, your body will fill with light. What that means is, when you do nothing, practicing the single eye, you are taking action. So then meditation is action. Do you understand? You are doing absolutely nothing. You are turning yourself off so that God can turn himself on. And then you see that doing nothing is action. And you realize that action then is inaction. Do you know? And this is why it's so important, because our whole religion in the Christian sense is based on thinking of things, doing something. I got to do this, I've got to do that, I got to do the other thing, I got to obey this law, I got to do this law, I got to practice this, all of these different things, and it doesn't work. So spiritually, physical action is inaction. In other words, you meditate. That's physical action. You sit on the floor, you meditate. That's physical action, but that's inaction. See, that's the opposite of what we believe in our Christian and in our American culture. We believe we've got to be out doing something in order to have action. But in Isaiah 5:20 says they call good evil and they call evil good. They put light for darkness and darkness for light. So you see, doing nothing, meditation, is actually doing everything. It's action. And when you understand that you take, just come over here, Frank, you take action by doing inaction, doing nothing. And that by doing nothing, you will make action happen. Then you are realizing action and inaction, inaction and action, and you will then actually become one who understands the ways of God. This is exactly what Jesus Christ was saying. How did Jesus Christ say? If you want to have life, take no thought. In other words, if you want to have action, meditate, take inaction. Realize they're both exactly the same. I want to stop for a minute and tell you that we have a Hidden Meanings TV network, and we'd like to have you on it. And what we do each month, we send you a Hidden Meanings videotape with teachings from the church in front of a live audience, and they're really a bunch of tremendous subjects that we teach. Each month you'll get a tape. Frank, if you want to come down, we'll show you the number. You'll get a tape each month. Excuse me, it doesn't cost you 5 cents. All we ask you to do is send it on to the next person. Send the tape on to the next person. So you can call now or at the end of the program, 609-971-0537. Why don't you write that number down? When you call, leave your name, your address, and your telephone number. Your name, your address, and your telephone number. And we'll put you on the network, and each month you'll get a VCR tape. You watch it and send it on to the next person. There's no charge. There's the number. You can write that down, and you can call at the end of the program, 609-971-0537. So, come back up here. Here, then, Krishna is teaching us exactly what Jesus taught. Exactly. Jesus says, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. That's inaction. But your body will fill with light. That's action. Something will come as a result of doing nothing, as a result of shutting down the mind. That's why Jesus says, take no thought. That's inaction. But when you take no thought in action, you're actually performing the most important action you could do. You're practicing the single eye. You're obeying Jesus Christ as Lord. And things will happen. And you will see that the action that's taking place in your life, which is positive, and the healings are coming that's positive, happened as a result of the inaction. It didn't happen as a result of going to church. It didn't happen as a result of reading the Bible. It didn't happen as a result of singing songs. It happened as a result of obeying Jesus Christ and seeking within yourself and practicing the single eye. So that's why Krishna says, when you can see that inaction or meditation and action are the same thing, then you become the wisest person there is. And in fact, Krishna says, you become a saint, even though he still acts. Because why? Because a person who acts out of meditation, their action is not only meditative, it's spiritual, and it's not involved with their own desires, it's involved with the desires of God. Taking no thought, practicing the single eye, seeking within yourself for the kingdom of God is what Jesus taught, it's what Buddha taught, it's what Krishna taught. Now, according to Krishna, once you get to this point when you realize, I am not going to do anything until first I meditate. In other words, I am going into inaction and realizing that that's the action that I have to take. The action that I have to take is to do nothing. Once you realize that, Krishna says you become a sage. In other words, you become wise. And you recognize, you become filled with wisdom and understanding about the world and about God and about really what this universe is all about. It says, the wise call you sage. Those who know receive you, for you know. Those who do not know do not recognize. Isn't that interesting? In other words, when you get into this new age of Christ and you start coming to grips with the knowledge of meditation, of the kundalini, of that which is the action within the spine that raises the energy up to the pineal gland, when you begin to understand, when you actually stop talking about Jesus and actually do what he says and reconstruct yourself from within, then according to Krishna, those who know, other people who are following that inner pathway that Christ set out will recognize you. Yet the people in religion who have no idea or who would consider this evil will not know. And when you are wise, you then utter the dark sayings that the universe fears. That's what talking in tongues is. You begin to utter the sayings that you hear here, the symbolic languages, the deep allegorical references of spirit. They come from you because you have practiced action by taking inaction. You have done what has to be done by meditating and doing nothing. Wisdom is also defined in Proverbs 1:2. To know wisdom, to understand a proverb, the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings, which are the hidden meanings. And then Krishna says whatever he undertakes is free of the motive of desire. Everything that I see in religion is filled with desire. People even help the poor because they're going to go to heaven for doing it. They give up this and give up that. Why? Not because it's good, but because they want to get a blessing. They give money because they want to get money back. Tilton's made billions doing this, telling people, if you give, you'll get something back. It's all desire, and it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work, and it's contrary to everything Jesus taught. It's contrary to everything the Bible taught. It's contrary to everything that Krishna taught. You're guided by spirit from universal good to accomplish what the universe wants to be accomplished, not for your own self-interest. And so the point is, have you reached that point? It says, a person who has reached that point will find that his deeds are purified by the fire of wisdom. You have people on television telling you about Armageddon and God's gonna burn up the place with fire. Listen to what Krishna said 7,000 years ago. Your deeds are purified by the fire of wisdom. Okay? Armageddon is not a real fire coming down from a planet somewhere to burn the earth, an atomic war. These guys are still on television. These lunatics saying that. It is the fire from heaven, is the spirit which comes from the higher consciousness down into your lower consciousness to purge away all of the hurts and the thoughts and the things that try to hurt you. And it says in Revelation 3:18, I counsel you to buy me gold tried, purified by the fire. In other words, bring yourself to that higher realm of consciousness and allow all of those thoughts of religion and fear and guilt and all of that stuff which is antichrist to be purged away by the Spirit. And the pure gold will remain, and your deeds certainly will be purified by the wisdom. I wanted to share that with you today. The teachings of Krishna. The absolutely amazing thing, what startles so many Christians when they'll come into our church and they study with the words of Krishna, is what they find out is the fact that Krishna's teachings were exactly the same as Jesus, as was Buddha. Buddha's teachings were of inner peace and then pouring that peace out to help others. Buddha only existed for one purpose, and that was to help people overcome suffering. And yet Christianity, people are afraid of him. How can you be afraid of someone who only existed for one purpose, and that is to help alleviate suffering? How can you be afraid of Krishna, who existed for one purpose, to show the inner pathway? How then will you not obey Jesus Christ, who took Buddha, who took Krishna, who took right from God and served it to you, and say, look, the kingdom of God is within you. He said, I'm within you. Seek within yourself, and you'll find that kingdom, and you will set yourself free. And when you perform action, you are meditating, which is at the same time inaction. Your action is to do nothing and to set yourself down and allow God then to direct you from the right hemisphere of the brain. That's what it's all about.